Comic Boom here to review Secret Empire number 10. This is it. This is the big issue where finally we have the battle between the good Steve Rogers against his evil doppelganger, the Hydra Captain America that everybody hates so damn much and that has been causing so much controversy over the last 2 years or so, or whatever the hell it is. Where does one begin? Guys, I never even bothered to review issue 9 of Secret Empire simply because it was all set up. In that issue, basically it was revealed that good Steve Rogers that's been running around in somewhere in a place that we've been sort of referring to as the vanishing point, well, it ends up that good Steve Rogers is nothing but a figment of Kobik's imagination. But because Kobik, as we know, is a cosmic cube, her imagination's pretty powerful. And basically issue 9 is just set up and putting all the heroes in place for when they ultimately face Hydra Captain America. Because issue 9 basically had all the heroes coming into battle. The Hydra forces around the planet are pretty much defeated, and the only one to fight in issue 10, of course, it's down between all the heroes on the planet and Hydra Captain America. And Hydra Captain America, he makes mincemeat of them very quickly. He basically wishes them all away, and he creates the world exactly how he likes it. And there's only 2 heroes left, really, and that's Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Bucky. And it's clear that the only reason Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Bucky are still alive and haven't been wiped out by cosmic-powered Hydra Captain America in his cosmic cube-powered armor, the only reason they're not wiped away is because they still have that one remaining fragment of the cosmic cube that they obtained through Barf in issue 7, if you recall. Hydra Captain America has no idea that Sam Wilson and Bucky have this plan along with Ant-Man, such that Sam Wilson looks like he's surrendering to Hydra Captain America, says Hail Hydra, gets on his knees, and while he's distracting Hydra Cap, Ant-Man and Bucky get really small. Ant-Man uses his powers, they get really small, and they go into the cosmic cube fragments that's powering Captain America's Hydra Captain America's iron suit, and they meet Cubic, and they go down to microscopic size. Ant-Man takes off. Meanwhile, Bucky continues to shrink until he penetrates the cosmic cube, and he talks to Kobik. He inspires Kobik to create, from the memories of good Steve, recreate the good Captain America. And the good Captain America comes out, and it's an epic battle, and it's beautifully drawn by Steve McNiven. And boom, I mean, there's that 2-page spread that's all over the internet that was spoiled by the New York Times, but boy, what a spoiler. I normally don't like when people spoil things, but even the spoiler was epic. I mean, it was a really great battle, and good Steve Rogers, I mean, the way he wielded that hammer, that was awesome. And the answer to the question, how did Hydra Captain America in those early issues of the 0 issue and 1 issue, how did Hydra Captain America wield a hammer? Well, it's very interesting. It wasn't really Mjolnir. It was actually Madam Hydra was using a fragment of the cosmic cube to change the nature of Thors Hammer so that it wasn't the most worthy that could lift it, but the strongest one for Hydra. And so that's why it was somewhat of a trick. It was a sort of trick the reader, because it wasn't really Thor's hammer. It was basically Hydra's hammer. History was rewritten so that the hammer was really Hydra's hammer, and only the strongest Hydra member could lift it. And that's basically how they explain that. And there's that epic battle scene here in issue 10 where good Steve, or Hydra Cap, he's getting defeated. He's losing the hand-to-hand combat with Steve Rogers, good Captain America, and he goes to lift the hammer and he discovers that he can't lift it. And he's thinking that, what's going on? And you could see his world begin to shatter, and good Steve Rogers comes over and says, here, let me help you with that. And he lifts it up, and boom! Proving that only those who are worthy, truly worthy, can lift the hammer. And it was an epic moment. And there was a couple of 2-page spreads here. The first 2-page spread was that good Cap kicking the ass of Hydra Cap. And then the other 2-page spread was showing the legacy heroes that played a crucial role in defeating Hydra Cap and putting the pieces into place that allowed basically Bucky and Ant-Man and Sam Wilson to step up to the plate and to make it happen. Because the fact of the matter is that it was the spirit of Captain America in this series, the spirit of Captain America, embodied by both Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, that really won the day. And Sam Wilson inspired the heroes to stand up to Hydra Steve Rogers, to Hydra Captain America, who was corrupted through no fault of his own by Kobik, the cosmic cube that was initially controlled by and manipulated by the Red Skull. And Sam Wilson got his inspiration from the original Steve Rogers. So when you look at it that way, those people who are really offended that Steve Rogers was a bad guy throughout this, remember that Steve Rogers was corrupted through no fault of his own by an all-powerful cosmic cube. It wasn't his fault. He was corrupted by a cosmic cube. His history was rewritten. But it was because of Steve Rogers' inspiration, inspiring all the younger generation heroes, particularly Sam Wilson, who's also Captain America. Sam Wilson, that Steve Rogers' legacy is Sam Wilson. He inspired him, and Sam Wilson was the one that stepped up to the plate. There's a great moment in this series for those who are Marvel zombies. If there was a time back in another classic series, Infinity Gauntlet, where Captain America Steve Rogers stood up to Thanos, knowing that he would likely die. And he stood up and he confronted Thanos himself. And there's the same moment in this series where Sam Wilson, believing him that he's likely to die, standing up to the Hydra cosmic cube powered Captain America, that he confronts him knowing that he's going to die, but it's on principle. And it's really an epic moment, and it's that spirit of Captain America, regardless of your skin color, that wins at the day here. This is a really good message, and that other 2-page spread where it shows all the legacy heroes, in addition to Thor, the Scarlet Witch, to Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Miss Marvel. They were all crucial in helping win the day here. And it might not be, it's true that in much of this series, the classic Avengers were corrupted and taken over and were the bad guys in large part. It must be remembered that legacy heroes are great and they gain their inspiration from the classic heroes. So rather than take offense to it, from a story perspective, be inspired by it, because that's what it's intended to do. And so this is a good lead-in to Generations. Whether you like Generations or not, it is a good lead-in to it. As much as I love this issue, and you'll note that I had some fun with it, posing and wearing my Captain America outfit and the Thors Hammer, the journey of reading and reviewing Secret Empire has been a lot of fun. I've collected all the issues and I got pretty much all the tie-ins. But I gotta tell you, there are some criticisms, and one of the big ones, I think, is that this was a fairly bloated series in a sense. There was a lot of plot lines that probably didn't need to be in this series, because I think they complicated what is otherwise a simple message, and that is, Nazis are bad, let's just have a good fisticuffs, let's have some good action, let's just have a theme that, corrupted ideals are not Captain America's way, and ultimately the idealism of what Captain America and what America stands for will shine through, and that even if you corrupt one person, the spirit of Captain America is everywhere. It's okay if Steve Rogers gets corrupted, because there's other people that were inspired by originally who he was, and of course that's embodied by Sam Wilson. And at the end of the day, legacy still wins, and that legacy, it isn't just embodied by the new heroes. Legacy is embodied by the lessons we learned by the soldiers, men and women who died for us in World War I and World War II to fight for the ideals that exist right now and that give us our freedoms. So there's a lot of great general ideas here that we could focus on. Having said that, that's a simple idea, but it was very complicated in the way it was done. This wasn't just 10 issues of Secret Empire. There's at least 15 issues that you had to read to truly appreciate this series. Actually, maybe even 16 or 17. Because there's the Zero issues, there's issues of Captain America, I believe it was 17 and 25, that you kind of needed to read to catch on to. I think there was a couple issues of even Sam Wilson Captain America that would have been helpful to understand going on. There was an issue of Deadpool that was helpful because he killed Phil Coulson, and he set up Mariah Hill, and he gave Mariah Hill information to take out Blackout, to take on the Dome in New York City. So there was definitely some side issues there that are necessary to read if you want full answers to everything. It was also unclear at the end, once Steve Rogers defeated Hydra Cap, it was unclear if Hydra Cap was alive. It was unclear. Kobik rewrote reality, rewrote history, but we don't know if Hydra Cap's still alive. But we find out in another issue, specifically in Deadpool, that apparently Hydra Cap is still alive. So I don't really understand that. There's some inconsistencies there. Kobik rewrites reality at the end, which was really great. And but rather than resetting everything, Kobik feels guilty. And she should feel guilty, because remember that Kobik is in fact, I mean, Kobik's this all-knowing cosmic cube, but she's the one that caused everything. She's the one that corrupted the history. She ultimately is the one that created Hydra Captain America. Hydra Captain America exterminated lots of people, wiped out Las Vegas, killed Black Widow, killed Rick Jones, created concentration camps for Inhumans, killed millions of people worldwide, took out Newtyon, persecuted mutants, Inhumans, everything you could think of, all in the name of strength and control. And hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of people died. And incredibly, Kobik, she basically restored the history, but she didn't restore anyone's lives. She didn't bring the people who were killed back. The only people she brought back were the heroes, except for Black Widow and Rick Jones. So that's a little odd. So let me just be more clear here. When Kobik confronts Hydra Cap, she undoes everything that Hydra Cap did. And one of the things Hydra Cap did was that he erased from existence all the heroes, and he replaced the heroes with his own interpretations of them. For example, he replaced the Lincoln Monument with a monument to Isaac Newton, because that's who he admired. He replaced Fantastic Four history with Doctor Doom being in the place of Reed Richards. He replaced. He had his own version of the Marvel history, and it's sort of hinted at it. A nice splash page drawn by Ron Lim, who was the artist for Infinity Gauntlet. So it's a nice little homage to him. And in any event, all that history that Hydra Captain America created, Kobik undid. But when Kobik undid it, oddly enough, Kobik restored the lives of all the heroes that Hydra Cap had erased, because he erased and eliminated all the legacy heroes. And this is said right up front. And yet, she brings them all back except for Black Widow and Rick Jones, and decides to leave everyone else who was killed. She didn't bring them back for some reason. So it seems kind of like Kobik was kind of being an asshole. I don't really understand it. In the story itself, this is explained by saying that Kobik wanted to leave the scars so that people would remember and basically say never again. So Kobik, having caused the destruction in the first place through her stupidity and naivete, suddenly takes it upon herself, despite the fact that it's her fault that all these people are dead and all these horrific things have happened. She doesn't undo the lives. She doesn't restore the lives that she took, except for conveniently for some of the heroes. So that felt really, really forced. And Kobik is still a prick. She's an asshole. She's a complete bitch. And I mean, she goes from this naive 4-year-old cosmic cube to this all-knowing god. She's going to restore everything, but I'm not going to restore everything because you humans need to learn a lesson. You need to know what bad guys look like. So you need another lesson. The only way you're going to learn not to kill is if I leave all the people dead that were exterminated and wiped out in all those concentration camps, and I'm going to make sure you remember everything, even though I've restored history. And if Kobik restored history, how can people remember everything? And if Kobik restored history back to normal so that World War II wasn't really won by Hydra, then how can Hydra Cap actually exist if that was all restored again? So there's all kinds of time fuck-ups here and things that don't really make a lot of sense if you think too hard about it. So don't think too hard about it. Just know this, that in order to make future storylines work, Marvel basically just went ahead and said, you know what, we had a pretty cool scene there with Good Steve kicking the crap out of Hydra Captain America, and that's cool. Good Steve is back, but everything that happened still happened. Everybody remembers it. All the people that were killed are still dead. The heroes are back, except for Black Widow and Rick Jones, because we probably want to do a storyline with them in the future, so we had to leave them dead, so we just had Kobik arbitrarily leave them dead. So, okay. Oh, a number of other things too. Guys, so much has happened, I didn't know where to start. There is interesting tidbits here in Secret Empire that we never got an answer to. We still don't know how they resurrected David Banner Hulk. I thought that was going to be explained. I was really looking forward to that explanation. David Banner was killed in Civil War II by Hawkeye. It was never explained how Hydra brought him back, so that's still a mystery. So that feels like there's not really an ending there. So how did that happen? No explanation. So I don't know what the explanation is. There's some theories out there that it might be Ultimate Hulk, but I don't even know what that means because I don't really know. I didn't read Ultimate Hulk. So that's not an explanation. Not really clear how Scarlet Witch became corrupted. In fact, they don't even show. At no point did they show they show her being defeated, but they don't show how they exorcised her or how they managed to get her unpossessed by this other evil spirit. Those perhaps are minor things in the general scheme of things, but since those are the classic heroes and the classic heroic characters, I can understand the criticisms where, you know, you're focusing on these legacy heroes and you don't seem to care too much about explaining what happened to these other heroes, right? The other thing seems a little bit odd is AI Tony Stark was just it's not really Tony Stark, and there was the suggestion that he was killed. Captain America killed him in an explosion in issue, I think it was 6, when they took over when they destroyed the base in Las Vegas, and yet in the following issue, AI Tony Stark is back. That was never really explained. So it would have been nice if that was more clear. But again, you know, there are so many moving parts here that probably didn't need to be in it. and let me just finish that train of thought here. The moving parts, the subplots that did not need to be in this story. This did not need to be 10 issues long. As great as it ended, it didn't need to be 10 issues long. You didn't need any reference to New Time. There was no reason why we needed mutants in this storyline, really. We didn't really need New Time. We didn't need Atlantis. We didn't need Wakanda. There was no point having Black Panther in here. It was really a waste of time. We didn't need Giant Man and his building a time capsule. There could have been other ways to communicate with New York City instead of having a long, complicated thing of future planting a time capsule to send a signal back through time after the shield was down around the earth. That was just completely unnecessary, and it complicated things, and I completely misunderstood it. Now, granted, you can just say I'm an idiot, I should have read it better, but there's so many moving parts. I forgive myself for maybe screwing up that one. I thought there was going to be some time-related sort of resolution here, but that wasn't the case. But the whole time capsule, that shouldn't have been in there. Chasing the cosmic cube fragments all around the planet, and they conveniently landed in places where superheroes are. That seems somewhat forced. Seems somewhat unnecessary. The Ultron supper and the dinner, as much as cool as it was to maybe have all the heroes sitting around supper and pointing each other's faults, that seemed somewhat forced too, and somewhat odd as well. Again, unnecessary. I don't think we really needed all that. But you know what? It is what it is. The good things, the highlights of Secret Empire that I liked was I liked the fact that there was a little bit of redemption for Captain Marvel in terms of sort of coming to terms with the role that she played in being manipulated by Hydra Captain America. I liked the fact that there was at least some form of an apology from Tony Stark. And ironically enough, I thought it was, even though that Ultra scene was the dinner scene with Ultron, where people are, where all of them sort of get into an argument. That was well done too. That was a little cathartic, and I think there was some sort of there was some self-awareness on the part of Marvel in terms of what their heroes, how their heroes actually come across through the various big events over the last 5 to 10 years. So there were some good moments there, and I also got to give credit to Spencer that when he wrote this, let's face it, he never had really access to the Hulk because the Hulk has been killed. He never had access to Odinson Thor. He never really had great access to Tony Stark. And so he had to be creative because Tony Stark was in a coma, Thor was unworthy, David Banner Hulk was dead. So if he had already written his story, he had to somehow creatively try to jam these heroes into the story, because Marvel continuity was so screwed up over the last 5-6 years leading into Secret Empire that it's quite clear that because Marvel has been pushing aside their classic heroes and taking away their dignity and integrity by forcing it into new characters, Spencer had to essentially be very creative to try to work in Banner Hulk, work in Tony Stark as an artificial intelligence computer program, and work in Unworthy Thor. So he did a reasonably good job doing that, given what he had to work with. And clearly, Axel Alonso gave him the entire Marvel Universe to play with. However, I don't think he needed to play with it. I think this would have been a better, more cohesive story had he simply kept it a Captain America series, because one of the things that reads really well, the individual issues of Captain America Steve Rogers and Captain America Sam Wilson, those are great series. This would have been an even more epic series had it simply been restricted to that comic book, and simply went back and forth between Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Steve Rogers Captain America, and it would have been, I think it actually would have been, it would have been a comic book series that would have gotten better publicity than Secret Empire did, and it would have, I think it may have come across a little bit more cohesive as opposed to as convoluted as it has appeared. Now, I know I sounded negative there. Overall, I think this story works. I'll give this series a B, a solid B, or if you will, maybe a 7.5 out of 10. It ends on a high note and a positive note. And I enjoyed the journey. I did. I enjoyed the journey, and the ending could be better, but overall, this was a fun time. And I think history is going to be kind to Secret Empire, because it's not near as bad as some people want it to be. So many people are tainted by the SJW movement. It's so depressing that I gotta call out so many YouTubers out there that have reviewed this series. It's so obvious that they just actually haven't really read it. Their criticisms have to do with Marvel publishing politics and not stemming from an actual reading of the issue, or criticizing them for putting out spoilers, or criticizing them for hiring editors, or criticizing. When it comes right down to it, if you read the story is just not that bad. It's just not near as bad as people think. This is at the end. This is just a Cosmic Cube story, people, with Cosmic Cube rewriting reality. And yes, you can legitimately criticize Nick Spencer for maybe even lying to you and saying, well, it's not going to be a Deus Ex Machina ending, but it is, where the hammer wasn't a trick. Well, it was a trick. So he lied to you. What's the big deal? The question is it a decent story? And it works pretty well. And issue 10's pretty epic. If you don't like it, that's fine. But buying every issue, not reading them, and then reviewing them, giving the impression that you've actually read them and you don't like it, that I can't help but to scoff at a little bit and saying, really? Or better yet, buying the issue and throwing it in the garbage? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. But in any event, I want to talk about some of the themes of Secret Empire, because now that issue 10 is over, some of the themes of Secret Empire that really stand out are some of them are very obvious, some of them are not so obvious. The one that means the most, the one theme that is the strongest to me throughout, that really resonates with me, is this focuses around Thors Hammer and the idea of the difference between being worthy and being strong. You know, Hydra was always about strength, but being worthy is far more about strength. Anybody can get strong. Pop a few vitamins, take some drugs, work out a little bit, fill your body with testosterone, whatever you want. Strength is actually easy. Hydra confuses strength. Hydra has always confused strength. Nazis have always confused strength and power with worthiness. And that's not what being worthy is all about. And boy, was that hammered home just beautifully in issue 10, when it was revealed that when Hydra Cap picked up the hammer, the nature of the hammer had been changed by Madam Hydra, such that only those that possess strength in the opinion of Hydra, however that was defined in Madam Hydra's imagination, because she was using a cosmic cube fragment and wishing it to be the case, and it was basically her wish given strength by a cosmic cube fragment that allowed Hydra Captain America to pick up the hammer that wasn't actually Mjolnir, but a perverted version of Mjolnir. And when that was changed, when Kobik changed reality back and made the hammer that only those who were worthy could possess the power of Thor, as opposed to those who were strong to possess the power of Hydra. When that went back to worthiness, Hydra Cap couldn't lift the hammer. But we all know who could. And that was the original Steve Rogers himself, brought back and given flesh based on the Kobik's memories of him. And what's inspiring about that is even Kobik's recollection. Her recollection of the good Steve Rogers. The idea of Steve Rogers. The mere idea. Kobik only had a mere memory of good Steve Rogers. But that idea, the memory of good Steve Rogers, enough. That was enough to defeat the all-powerful Hydra that had reshaped reality. That's how inspiring Steve Rogers, Captain America, was. Worthiness over strength. And what makes one worthy? It's the values of love, compassion, equality, helping people. That good old Kirby spirit, Jack Kirby. That's all there embodied in Steve Rogers. So that's the spirit of Kirby. That's what Kobik was remembering ultimately, because that's embodied in Steve Rogers. That's how I choose to view it, and that's what I find so inspiring about it. And it's worth thinking about. The other theme that is extremely powerful in Secret Empire is one that is perhaps its most controversial, particularly given the controversy that Marvel has faced over the last 2 years. And that is the idea of legacy. There is absolutely no denying that over the last 2 years, well, longer than that, Marvel has slowly, whether you view it as coincidence or by design, have slowly cast their classic characters by the wayside and focused more on new and diverse characters. And Marvel's perhaps made some mistakes by casting aside all their classic heroes at the same time. And whether they intended it or not, the perception is that they don't care about their classic characters anymore. And depending on how you want to read Secret Empire, you can either think that Secret Empire is either going to reinforce your way of thinking in that regard or change it. For me, it's changed it in a positive way, because this is how I view legacy in the context of Secret Empire. Legacy has helped win the day, and legacy cannot exist unless you have inspiring classic heroes that gave rise to it. The legacy heroes, the champions in Secret Empire. Miles Morales, in particular, his story alongside Black Widow, the classic character, embodies the importance of legacy just as much as the importance of legacy of Steve Rogers inspired Sam Wilson to take up the shield against Captain America, inspire the other heroes to ultimately win the day against Hydra Cap. Because let's be clear about this. Remember in Civil War II, where Hydra Cap has that, everyone sees that image of Miles Morales killing Captain America. Hydra Cap believed that he was going to die. And the only reason he didn't was because he was holding onto a piece of the Cosmic Cube fragment when Miles was supposedly about to kill him. And of course, the Wasp whispering in Miles' ear, telling Miles, you don't have to do this. And let's not forget that ultimately, the Black Widow, remember at the beginning of Secret Empire, the Black Widow was trying to train these champions to kill. She says, my God, we're facing Hydra Cap. We're facing people that will exterminate us. They've created concentration camps. They hate everybody. They hate Inhumans. They hate mutants. They hate humans. They hate, if you're different, they hate gays. They hate lesbians. They're Nazis. And this is all. We have to kill these people. And the champions didn't want to do that. Miles Morales, the Wasp, Miss Marvel. No, they're of a different ilk. They're perhaps seen as being perhaps naive, younger, don't realize that sometimes you gotta kill in order to get things done. Well, at the end of the day, Black Widow, as much as she wanted to train the champions to do that, at the end of the day, even Black Widow realized that she didn't want the future to be like her, that they could be better. That maybe there was a day where Black Widow wouldn't kill either. And she knows that deep down that Captain America, the good Steve, would never kill unless he absolutely had to. And so she gave her life so that Miles Morales would not have to be tainted by having to kill, because she didn't want to have that to happen, and that's why she gave her life. And Miles Morales didn't kill. And that's moving forward. No matter, everyone who's a father, everyone who's a parent, we all want our children to be better than we are. It doesn't matter how egotistical we are. It doesn't matter how arrogant we are. It doesn't matter how narcissistic we are. We want our children to be better than we are. We want the next generation to learn from us and to be better than we are and to be better. And the fact of the matter is that we are entering a time right now in the real world where economically, what they say for the first time in many generations, where the present generation may not have as much as their parents had. And we live in very narcissistic times where there's a perception that people are selfish and narcissistic, and everyone's fighting and everybody's angry. And the idea that somebody of the present generation would sacrifice themselves for somebody of the next generation, giving them the benefit of the doubt, honoring their spirit. That's something that is really prevalent in what Black Widow does in Miles Morales and giving her life for her. And it's not just Sam Wilson who does that. Sam Wilson was inspired by the memory of the good Steve Rogers. This is about the power of memory, the power of legacy. Good Steve Rogers was always around. He was always present. He was in the memory of Kobik. The memory of good Steve Rogers was in the memory of Sam Wilson, was in the memory of AI Tony Stark, was in the memory of all the people that believed that good Steve Rogers, that his spirit would ultimately come back, that he'd win the day somehow, some way. And that's exactly what happened. It's about the power of memory, about the power of legacy. Never forget. And just to ram that point home, after good Steve Rogers takes out Hydra Captain America, and he's looking down at the defeated Hydra Cap, what does he say? He says, never forget. And you know what? The legacy heroes and the fans, they never did. Even the fans, you gotta admit, even if you hate Secret Empire, you've never forgotten the good Steve Rogers, because you want him back. And that's one of the reasons why you resent the storyline in the first place. But good news is, he's back. And he was never gone, because he was in the memory of Kobik. And Kobik's a cosmic cube, and well, all is well now. Now, this is a perfect lead-in to what Marvel's doing with Generations. Honoring both the old generation, the classic characters, and the new. And, well, I mean, whether you like those stories or not, that's for another day. But moving into Legacy, clearly Marvel had a plan going into this, and they may have tacked on these legacy stories and comics that have come out concurrent with Secret Empire. But at least the spirit and the intention of what Marvel is trying to do is a noble one, and I can't fault them. How they execute it, that's open to criticism, and you can watch many review videos on that, and I leave that to you. A third theme that I think is worth mentioning is a very simple one, and that is, if you fight for a good cause, you create your own luck. And this is a very short explanation. Sometimes when you're losing, but you know you're doing the right thing, and you're going to fight anyway. Courage sometimes is defined as knowing that you have a losing battle, but you fight for what's right anyway. And when you do that, good things happen if you just fight, and luck can be on your side if you just have a righteous cause. And I can't help but to think the whole barf scenario. The heroes take a break. They help some Inhumans out of a camp, and lo and behold, they happen to run into a crazy character by the name of Barf. And what the hell, Barf pukes up a cosmic cube. And that helps turn the tide that ultimately wins the day. And for those of you who think that's absolutely crazy, I'm a student of history, and I can tell you, history is riddled with examples where luck has won the day. Extraordinarily incredible things can happen because of luck. Incredibly powerful armies have been defeated by smaller ones, sometimes because of luck, because of split-second, last-minute choices. And that's just the way it is. And so that's what I like about this, is that it's nice to have a little bit of craziness in there. A fourth theme that I think is worth pointing out is the idea of redemption. And it's just the idea that even if redemption might be seen as being impossible, seek it anyway if you feel you need to be redeemed. Whether you believe that Captain Marvel was adequately redeemed herself in Secret Empire, she seeks it anyway. She sought it out anyway. And at the end of the day, she did what was right. Sam Wilson gave up the shield in depression because he felt he was rejected as Captain America by most of the country. But he stuck with it, and he took back the shield, and he came back, and he allowed legacy hero, and it was another legacy hero, Patriot, the younger up-and-coming Patriot, that inspired him to grab the shield again and to come back as Sam Wilson Captain America. The legacy of Thor, Odinson Thor, while feeling unworthy, he turned the tide, he helped turn the tide as well, because he ultimately realized that no more, he couldn't do this, and that no matter what happens, he realized he made a mistake. So he, in effect, he was on a redemptive kind of arc as well. Even AI Tony Stark, he apologized to Captain America. Part of the motivation that Tony Stark had to win the day and to defeat Hydra Captain America wasn't just because he's a good guy and that's what good guys do, but there's a part of him that felt guilty because of all those years, all those mistakes that he had made through Civil War, through Civil War II, arguably, leading into Secret Empire, all the things that he missed, losing touch with what it really means to be heroic. All those things come full circle. So Secret Empire was really about a redemption on many levels for many heroes. And that even applies to some of the other heroes, like, for example, even Deadpool had a crisis of conscience. Deadpool gave Hydra Captain America the benefit of the doubt and killed Phil Coulson. Well, he's coming around too. He tried to redeem himself by providing to Mariah Hill the location of Blackout, after which Mariah Hill killed Blackout. Mariah Hill herself had her own sort of redemptive arc. Mariah Hill's always been more of a lethal killing badass, and Mariah Hill's sort of strong, aggressive, militaristic ways helped ferment the crisis that led to Secret Empire, and she was very easily manipulated, along with Captain Marvel, by Hydra Captain America. But she didn't piss around. She came around too, and she had no problem killing Blackout and did what needed to be done. So in effect, she too never gave up. And all these people sticking to their guns. There's lots of tales of redemption in Secret Empire that is inspiring as well. Another theme that I think is somewhat obvious yet paradoxically subtle is just the power of corruption and bigotry, and how corruption and bigotry can slowly creep up on you in ways that you don't realize how powerful it is until suddenly it's right in your face. I can't be the only, it's impossible not to talk about real world politics on the subject. It's impossible. I never thought, I don't think anybody really thought that my country or the United States was as bigoted and as prejudiced as it is in regard to its own people. I never realized the extent of hatred and bigotry in the United States until Donald Trump got elected. I had no idea that they were that conflicted morally in terms of how to view all the issues. And I'm not saying that people who voted for Trump are bad people or nothing like that. I'm not, because I know some very good people that I highly respect that voted for him, and I'm conservative myself. However, I think that just in fairness to everyone, there's clearly a lot more that needs to be said and done here in terms of understanding each other, in terms of having those conversations that need to be had. And what Secret Empire does is very clearly say, look, have these conversations now. Let's get this out, debate, talk to each other. Because if you don't, if you refuse to talk, you refuse to confront these issues, look what can happen. Look how quickly Hydra Captain America came to power. And look what he did. Look how corrupt he became. Look how much he abused his power. And to the extent that you want to draw real world analogies, that's up to you. I don't want to touch that because everyone has their own opinion on that. But what I like about Secret Empire is, people get very emotional about it. There's no question that some of the vitriol and anger against Secret Empire, that's because people are angry in real life, because of politics in real life. There's no question about that. Some of the criticisms I've read about Secret Empire, number one, it's clear they haven't read it. Number two, they're just angry. They're just pissed off at Donald Trump, or they're just pissed off that Captain America's a Hydra agent and they read an article, and rather than think for themselves, they're just yapping their mouths off. That's all it is. It's just displaced anger, misplaced anger. But I will say this: the positive thing about it is that if we're going to have a debate about fascism, I'm going to say it right, People rightfully criticize me because I didn't know how to say fascism in past videos, because I kept saying fascism. It's fascism, so I apologize. Thank you for calling me out on it. I should say fascism correctly if I'm going to combat it, right? But in any event, we should be able to have discussions about fascism in the relative safety of talking about a comic book. What better medium to talk about political issues in the context of talking about Hydra? Let's talk about why we hate Hydra. Why Hydra are bad guys. Why do we hate them so much? Why do we love watching good Steve Rogers kick Hydra Cap's ass? Because it looks cool, it's epic, and we don't like Nazis. That's why we love it. So let's talk about that. We can still have that conversation and talk about the nuances without having to hurt each other and to say disrespectful things to each other to the extent that sometimes we do. So at the end of the day, guys, Secret Empire I think is a great story, and it is worth reading. It will be interesting to see if Axel Alonso's prediction is going to hold true. He stated in his ABC News interview following Secret Empire number 10 being released, he stated, the quote was that he believes that the story of Secret Empire is timeless and it will hold up decades from now. And I think he's right on that. I think it is going to hold up decades from now, because I think that the landscape decades from now is going to be very different for comic books. Although there is a cynical side of me that wonders if comic books are even going to exist decades from now in anything other than a museum. Maybe there'll be a Marvel Smithsonian Institute, a Marvel comic book Smithsonian Institute, and you'll be driving in your car. Our great-great-grandkids will be driving in vehicles with their kids, and their kids will ask them, "Daddy, what's a comic book?" "Well, son, they were stories of superheroes that used to exist until SJWs came along and destroyed everything." I'm just kidding, sort of. "What's an SJW, Daddy?" Anyways, you get the drift. Is Axel Alonso going to be right? I don't know. But I do know that I did enjoy Secret Empire. I enjoyed the journey. Perhaps I enjoyed the journey a little bit more than the destination. But the destination's fun too, and I got to wear my Captain America outfit. And there's so much to talk about. There's so many themes here. There are where this is heading. There are some unresolved plot lines coming out of this. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it's going to be interesting to see what Generations does. It's going to be interesting to see going into Legacy if Marvel is really going to do anything different. They promise that they're not going to do a big event for 18 months. And I got to tell you, I find that hard to believe, because it seems to be there's so much setup in Secret Empire. I mean, Hydra Captain America is still alive. So now we actually have, think about this, we actually have 3 Captain Americas now. We've got Sam Wilson Captain America, we got good Steve Rogers Captain America, and we got Hydra Captain America. So now we have 3 Captain Americas. Not killing Hydra Captain America, I strongly disagree with. He should have been erased from existence by Kobik. But unfortunately, Marvel, once again, the only possible reason they'd want to keep Hydra Captain America around is to once again confuse their continuity and to move toward a bigger and different event after 18 months from now. 18 months goes by very quickly in comic books. I think it's a big mistake keeping Hydra Captain America alive. They shouldn't have done it. I think that was a huge mistake. And I still think the biggest albatross in the room, elephant in the room, I guess, is Kobik's actions in not resurrecting. I don't know how Kobik's not a supervillain in this. I really don't. Kobik, you can say she was manipulated, but Kobik in many ways played the god at the end here, and she never resurrected all those who died. And that's horrendous. She had the power to do so and chose not to. She picked and chose who she resurrected. She resurrected the legacy heroes, but she didn't resurrect the family of 4 Inhumans that were massacred or killed, or the people of Las Vegas that were innocently wiped out. She just arbitrarily decided who lived and who died. That just seems extremely arbitrary, and it really defeats the purpose of what the message of Secret Empire is supposed to be about. You don't need to have exterminations. You don't need to leave people dead in order to learn the lesson, Kobik. But sadly, for Kobik having been inspired by good Steve Rogers, for her not to resurrect all those that were exterminated, I think in many ways Kobik hasn't really done a lot of respect to good Steve Rogers. And Also, there's no indication, by the way, what happened to Kobik at the end of this. Where's Kobik? Where did Kobik go? And if Kobik didn't go anywhere, why isn't good Steve Rogers saying to Kobik, hey Kobik, what the hell's going on? Bring everybody back to life. What are you doing? How come you brought these heroes back to life, but you didn't bring back all the people? You brought back all the people that Hydra Cap wiped out from existence. You undid all his history, and but you're not going to bring back the people? What the hell? Right? It ain't right. But in any event, that's all I got to say about Secret Empire, guys. I look forward to the Omega. It's going to wrap up some other dangling things from Secret Empire that's coming out. In the meantime, guys, Comic Boom out.